Thank you very much. No big announcement this time around. Any updates from the team?
Working on some fixes with Jibri connections. We had a couple of bugs in Gcofo, as well as bugs in SMAC and the Gcoco library, which would trigger failure to broadcast all presence in the control room, and eventually failures to live stream and record a meeting. This was affecting the main Jitsi service for a few days until we figured it out. It should be fixed now. And it's also fixed in master with an update of Jibri's dependencies and a PR that fixes some bugs in Gcofo.
Thank you very much, Boris. Anyone else? One quick from me, we're going to change the layout a little bit, and we're going to try and make sure that we always use the maximum amount of available space. You can already see some of that happening now in this release on web, but we're not fully optimizing that space for lower numbers of participants. For example, 3 participants will still go on 2 rows, even if there's sufficient width. So we're working in that, and that might imply that we were not always going to show you the full width of videos, except when we detect that there's a screen share happening. So this is a little bit risky, and who knows, it may turn out that we roll it back, but we think it's important to try. So we're going to try it out. I think that will probably conclude the update from the team. So I'm opening the microphone to the floor. Any questions from the community?
I don't really have a question, but more like a heads up for folks who don't follow browser development that closely. The Firefox guys landed an update of libRepREC for the first time in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. So if you care about Firefox, download Firefox nightly and give it a try. If it still works with you, there's only a few weeks left to report bugs from it. And historically, these updates always brought regressions. So just for your interest, if you want to test, download Firefox nightly and test it with your service now.
Thank you, Niels. There was a question from Stan about whether or not the issues reported by the Jitsi team have been addressed. I'm not sure which issues those are. Are these the RDX issues? But if that speaks to you and you want to comment, please go ahead. Other than that, there's also a question from Matteo. Is there a plan to introduce code guidelines? We do have code guidelines, so I'm not sure what the question is about. Maybe Matteo, if you want to be more specific. Other than that, any other questions?
I have a quick one, Emil.
Yeah.
And I probably should do a little more research on this before asking, but since it's not a very busy day. So there's this I guess it depends on how you look at it. It could be a feature or an issue where we get a notification that the video's been turned off to something about saving bandwidth. I can't remember the exact phrasing right now. And it doesn't seem like it's quite capturing, accurately the available bandwidth when it does that. and I've walked through quite a number of versions and unstable versions of it. I haven't really looked at the latest unstable to see if that's still there. I was just wondering if this is something that's considered, that's on the radar, as in maybe it's not functioning quite perfectly, or if it's just something that I need to fine tune better on my end.
Yes, it's not functioning quite perfectly because it's probably the hardest problem that we have in video conferencing altogether. If by not functioning perfectly mean, are there cases where we underestimate or overestimate the bandwidth that's available?
Correct.
For sure. Yeah, it's just that we're not aware. Like, we're doing the best that we're aware that we know how to do, and it's not. There's plenty of. You're doing guesswork. You're trying to predict the future a little bit, and that has its issues. And usually the choices that you have are you can be more conservative or more aggressive in addressing your estimates. WebRTC as a whole is rather aggressive in response to especially low bandwidth estimations. We've seen in the past, for example, that other apps out there like Zoom are taking the opposite approach, and both approaches have their issues. And then there are certain times bugs, and the code doesn't behave exactly as we want it to behave, and those when we find them, we try to address them. The problem is that it's not, in order for you to know whether or not your code misbehaved, you're missing an essential component, which is, well, I don't know what was possible. So I don't know whether what I had was an underutilization of available resources, for example. So diagnosing such issues takes repeated and as reliable as possible occurrences of a problem, pinning them down to a specific situation so that it can then resonate with the team and say, oh, okay, that sounds like, too repetitive of a pattern for it to be an actual reflection of the environment. And so the answer is that that's just a flaky area for all video conferencing, and we're trying to do our best.
I see. Do you think, from your own end or your experience, that have you seen this happening a little bit more in the in more recent iterations of Jitsi? Because I don't recall ever
turning off video in order to save bandwidth. Yes, I've seen it happen. The question is that I don't know whether when it happened it was justified or not.
Okay.
And the answer is I don't know.
Okay, I know for a fact in our environment it wasn't justified. I guess
but it's hard to know, So
Really?
there's two ways. Two ways in which it could be unjustified.
Right.
One of them is, look, it was impossible for more bits to get through in this network at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And even that is kind of, well, you never know. There might have been a piece of equipment somewhere that was temporarily misbehaving. Who knows? But the second one is the second that is even trickier is there were some variations that caused our bandwidth estimation to drop. So we ended up sending significantly less. And so what you would say in these cases is, yes, the network would have allowed better, but the way it behaved was similar to other networks that are actually problematic. And so the algorithm behaved right, even though this specific network might have sustained more. Maybe the little bit of jitter variation that we saw is just some artifact of the behavior of that network. But generally, that jitter is indicative of buffers that are filling up or something. So buffers. And So you might have encountered either one of those, or it might have been no. It's the network was fine and it wasn't even triggering. It shouldn't have even triggered the constraints of your algorithm. But somehow, for some reason, some component of Jitsi Video Bridge thought that there was an issue, and neither of those are trivial to maintain. So I'm not sure what. Sorry, to diagnose. So I'm not sure what to tell you.
That's fine. I guess well, I'm thinking of it. Are you saying this more now than you were before? Because I don't recall this being quite a common experience for me. Say last year, early this year.
So overall, no. We see what we see over time is the people who that the number of reports in that area
Yeah.
are kind of the same.
I see.
The people who report them change, and the circumstances in which they occur change, and that might, or
I see.
So no, and anyone on the team here, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe that right now we're hearing this more. Paolo, do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, so actually there was very specific point in libjitsi meet where I was seeing this message because the video muted status wasn't sent. And then the UI would show you that it was limited because of no bandwidth, but really the video was just turned off. But it was just very specific commit, which was there like for a few days. So I'm not sure if that's the case for you. But there's one thing you can try, like when you're looking for regressions, you can basically try using the network link condition. Because like Emil said, it's true, like it's really hard to tell, but you would be able to find some bugs in a way where you basically set the limits to different values that would trigger different quality resolutions. And you can try like very old version and you can try the current one and see what's the difference between different bit rate limits. So maybe you can try that and get back with the results if you found anything. If it behaves the same, then it was most likely just something that was happening at this specific time on your network. If that makes sense.
No, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. I wouldn't hold any more of your time. Thank you.
I just want to add that we have changed certain things that we do in response to bandwidth estimation changing. A notable example is we take into account whether the stream comes from a camera or a screen share, and we do not oversend forcefully when it's a video or a camera feed, which is different than what we used to do. So some of these changes might affect your experience. I would also advise you, if you have a way to reproduce it reliably, get in touch and we can run some tests together, because this is something we're interested in pursuing. And one more thing is, it's very hard, as Emil mentioned, to rule out problems somewhere in the network that may be intermittent. Things like speed tests that claim that you have 100 megabits can be completely unreliable if the problems appear for half a second and then they disappear. Things like a device scanning Wi-Fi could affect it. I just saw that a couple of weeks ago. So if you are able to run some extra tests, we've been working on setting up iPerf servers here and there that we can that you can test against to see if you notice any loss or jitter on from your location to our network. If you're interested in running those, again, get in touch and we'll send you some details.
Oh, great, thank you. I certainly will. Yeah, I thought about something and now it's gone. All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Freddie. There was a question about an Etherpad bug. If someone is familiar on that, please chime in. Otherwise, I will assume that we haven't looked into it.
Yeah, we're not using it actively, so it's not on the priority list. I have commented in some PR, so the way that currently Etherpad is implemented, it's the only thing that it's implemented that way. So the large video, like the large space for the video, is taken by the Etherpad, and no thumbnail is shown, and it's buggy, and someone needs to look at it. But the what I have commented in that PR is that this needs to be written on the other way, how the YouTube video there is a thumbnail shown, and for sure that thing will work, but someone needs to take that, and we'll be happy to review any PRs.
Thank you, Damien. Any other questions?
Just briefly going back to Stan's question of the 2 Firefox bugs, I would say we have submitted several Firefox bugs. A few of them got fixed. A few of them got fixed through the libwebRC update, but there's plenty of bugs which are still open. So I'm not sure which 2 bugs you're referring to. Like if you know which 2 bugs they are, or like if you know the behavior, let me know, then I can definitely look into it.
For the stable release question, we did recently update Jitsi. We normally update stable after updating Jitsi, but there was one issue that's about Firefox, which will be fixed on the next Jitsi release, and probably after that we'll push a new stable release. So it will be in a few weeks.
Thank you, folks. Last call. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and see you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.